Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel, welcome to my overview of Witchfire. For those on across it, I do overviews on this channel. I have a look at the first 2 hours of a game because it's a Steam refund window. Steam says that you can make up your mind in that amount of time about whether you want to keep a game or not. And broadly speaking, I'd agree and say 20 hours in, you usually don't change your mind about how you felt 2 hours in. So it's a short punchy video, I give you the broad strokes info, keep it around 10 minutes, and then you can make up your mind on your own. So I've been watching this game from afar because it came out on Epic however long ago. Let's call it a year, but whatever. It's existed for a while, and it's been chipping away, getting updates, and it's made its way across to Steam. I finally bit the bullet and forked out for it. It's not cheap, it's the high end of, I suppose, AA price, and it's early access, so I have my apprehension going into it, but it's been fairly well received in the wider community, and just something about it looks really cool, you know, this sort of first-person witch hunter, maybe roguelike, Souls-like sort of thing. Anyway, that's the setup, that's where I'm coming from. What do I think? I think this game's quite brilliant, and I'm really glad that I bit the bullet and took the dive on it. It's being developed by the Astronauts, who I had to look up, and they did The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, if you know that from back in the day. Interesting game because it was one of the sort of early proto, let's say, walking sims before walking sims really did wear out their welcome. And the big thing about Ethan Carter, I still remember from then, is how it was kind of pushing the envelope graphically, especially for a kind of more indie group. And the reason that I mention that is that sort of sentiment or handiwork, whatever you'd like to call it, carries over here. This game is phenomenal looking. Technically, absolutely solid. You know, all the movement, animations, you know, for a first-person shooter, they've definitely proven that they're just not some cop-out, walk-out sim game company, which is a legit concern. And I honestly feel that a lot of low-tier devs use the walking sim on-ramp as a way to kind of avoid making a more robust gameplay loop. Not so here. This is really tight. All the movement, gunplay, you've got like a dodge mechanic that works into it a lot. Some melee, some spells like light and heavy spells, that sort of thing. Very punchy, very clean, but it looks like $1,000,000 from the ground up. And the aesthetic of the world, like even just your starting hub area that you go to, call it a bonfire, a sanctuary, whatever you want, because it does have some Souls mechanics in there, is this beautiful sort of cliffside sanctuary with mist that you know, I haven't seen mist this good since the OG Silent Hills. And it really does give this great, mysterious sort of edge of horror, medieval vibe that you don't see translate across that often, and you only see it in films, in occasional cult hits. Things that come to mind are things like The 13th Warrior, Valhalla Rising, albeit in this case it's more of a Christianity sort of churchy religion versus witch coven kind of vibe, but it has that sort of mist-covered, almost horror of the era vibe, and it's so good. So the loop, as I understand it, because a lot of it is very carrot on the stick, mystery driven, there's a lot of things that are still locked to me, and it's because my dude can't comprehend the magic involved or whatever. There's this gnosis stat, which I'm still not quite across yet, but it would seem that it's sort of taking the idea of, let's say, a Metroidvania in a way, where I'm gonna bounce between different deploy locations, unlock little bits of progress, and then backtrack as my guy's knowledge increases. So it's a bit more of an investigative sort of angle in that you're trying to root out this witch's coven. You're a super soldier from the bloody Vatican, basically. You pick your class. I chose the Saint, which is essentially, you know, your prisoner stand-in, your low stats, everything, high luck, generic kind of kit. But you can pick your more traditional kits as like 6 different dudes, lots of different weapons. It's all this sort of medieval gunplay, kind of hunt showdown in a way. Or actually, that might even be something that I should have led with, because I know a lot of people are standoffish on things like Tarkov, because it's got some Tarkov in here. But this is the Tarkov PvE game that people probably wish existed. Maybe that's enough for you to put everything down and go get it now. And Hunt Showdown to an extension, because they're the same sort of thing. And there's no player versus player combat. It's you versus the environment, but it still maintains its edge because it's very high difficulty and low time to kill. Granted, I haven't had a terrible run with it. I think I've perhaps been fortunate, but I've seen moments where the game kind of just randomly spurts out some enemies. Not quite monster closets, but it escalates it from 0 to 100, and I've got out with by the skin of my teeth. But yeah, the enemies hit like absolute truck. They'll do their best to flank around you. You really want to use your kit to fight them. It's fun. It's engaging, and it's a bit tough. But as far as like where it's going, like I said, I don't know how much is here in early access, presumably a fair bit. There's a couple of different locations. I've just unlocked another one. At first, it had me sort of going around breadcrumbing from like shrine to check out some lore and learn more about the island. And then I've unlocked a door into a tower that had like almost a defense system. Dudes would spawn in, but it had an almost like COD Zombies-esque, interact with this statue and bank X souls into it to open the door and progress further. And that in turn gave me a map to another location, which I'm now exploring as well. And you move around, and when you're ready to extract, you can go to a portal on the instance map and pull out. Now, it's not procedural in the sense that the actual maps are procedural. They're not. They are handcrafted and they're glorious. Like I said, the king's share of time I've spent is on this first one. It's this sort of island with a tower at the center of it, and it's just quite marvelous. There's a crashed shipwreck on one side, and I've become familiar with the area. There will be little enemy pop-off points. They'll be marked on the map, and also portals will spawn more dudes in. But generally speaking, you will go out to one of these marked skulls, you'll kill everything around the area, and then they'll drop this kind of upgrade token where you pick almost like a roguelike card battler in a way, like think Slay the Spire. It'll give you 3 options and you pick which one you want to upgrade. And in a way, going around the island and going to these little pips that are marked is sort of reminiscent of, like we looked at Breachway recently, of going to the next instanced fighting, and then picking a reward. So it's taken these mechanics and abstracted them across into a different kind of genre and perspective. It's very cool. It works really well. All the weapons are really quite sexy, and the spells, and like I just am a sucker for this kind of, whatever you would call it, this genre. Like, you're not a conquistador. I guess you're a holy warrior of the church. But, you've got your laboratories and your equipment, and if you can feel my excitement, I'm having a very hard time pinning it in, but it's because it sits in this sort of space that I want this game to exist, and I'm glad it does, and it sort of stands apart. But funnily enough, it taps so many cool different genres that I've just really wanted to be turned into a game that isn't too gamey as well. Like the HUD's not overblown or anything like that. I've done multiple runs back into this island. When you leave, you spend your souls to level up your points, so you have to extract, and if you die, you have to go back in and have another attempt at it. Your weapons can level up. I've got a research system where I'm unlocking new weapons. I got a new spell. Yeah, it really does. It taps that intrigue, right? That like Demon Souls 1 or Dark Souls 1 for people that joined at that point. That sort of magic, if you will, where you don't really know what's going on, but it's really interesting and immersive, and you're sucked in. And I stayed off the internet while I was playing this as well, because it is one of those things. Try and stay in your little bubble and enjoy the immersion. Anyway, so if you made it this far, I recommend checking this out, and kind of, maybe you're fortunate enough this is the only video that you've seen on it. I know it's not exactly the cheapest game, but I think it's capturing a sort of almost pre-internet magic if you engage with it on that grounds of just really letting a game envelop you and then reward you for sort of just buckling in and going along with it for the ride. Anyway, team, they're just my thoughts. Check it out yourself. Might just leave it there for the time being. I'll catch you guys on the next one.